And man, this one is humbling. I am so honored to be able to share this very big announcement with you guys that the XFL is officially collaborating with the NFL, the National Football League. The whole idea is to grow the game of football, the game that we all love. My number one priority will always be the players and creating more opportunities for them.
If you guys saw my USFL video, which if you didn't, make sure you check it out because it's a good little primer to know what's going down. The draft is happening this week and you want to be caught up with everything going on with spring football so you could get your fix of spring football. Make sure you check out that video. But I told you guys in that video that spring football is near and dear to my heart. More particularly, the XFL is near and dear to my heart because the very first video we made that popped off on this channel when your boy only had like 2,000 subscribers on this channel was the XFL rules being compared to the NFL rules. As a result, that video gained us a lot of subscribers. We were able to ride that momentum and build what we have today, which is over 500,000 subscribers. And now we cover spring football, we cover NFL news, we do NFL documentaries. And as a result, this is my first time covering spring football since I started, so I'm a little sentimental right now. But in regards to the XFL, which I wasn't really expecting to hear any news about the XFL up until next year, we got some breaking news. They are in partnership with the NFL. So before we get to the content, we are giving away $500 to a follower on my Instagram page. Also, if you could subscribe and turn on our notifications on this channel to help support us, that'd be great as well. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The XFL got its humble beginnings in 2001 when Vince McMahon decided to take on a new venture. There is a ton of market share to be had in spring football. I mean, there is a whole 8 months where there's no football being played at all whatsoever, and we could all agree that Americans love football. So as a result, there are two theories that have been concluded from this. One, if Americans love football, you could probably get other people to love football. And two, there needs to be a spring football league because otherwise, how are we going to get our football fix for those 8 months? Well, as a result, there's been a ton of leagues that have come and gone. You have the USFL in the 80s, which was an insane story. They were trying to go head to head with the NFL and were actually poaching the NFL's talent for a particular point. Then after almost 2 decades, you had the XFL, you had the NFL trying to do NFL Europe, which didn't really succeed in of its own right, but you did have some cool stories coming out of each and every one of those football leagues. For example, NFL Europe gave us Kurt Warner. More recently, the XFL gave us PJ Walker. And for the most part, it's clear that if one of these leagues is able to start up, well, a path could be carved out for any player in the NFL or a player that may have been overlooked before getting onto an NFL roster to eventually jump into the NFL and make a career for themselves. Maybe in the way that Kurt Warner did. Well, the AAF in 2019 seemed very promising, but they just lacked funding and organization, but they did have a lot of cool concepts and rules. Then the XFL came a year later, which looked incredibly promising. The product was absolutely awesome. The problem was they happened to start right when the COVID pandemic hit. Like literally a few months before the XFL started, and it got off to a good start. Then a couple months in, COVID hit, and that was just not the right time to start a brand new football league. Then a couple years went by, and ultimately this year we're getting the USFL, and next year we are getting the XFL. You might see the USFL and XFL merge together down the line. We don't know. Anything can happen. This is uncharted territory for us. Now, today we got an absolute bombshell from the XFL, something that, in my opinion, is unprecedented. We have never seen this happen before. The AAF, for context, ended up closing its league because they wanted to be the official developmental league for the NFL. The NFL rejected that. Well, take a look at this. The XFL for release. On February 21st, 2022, the XFL today announced it would collaborate with the NFL on select innovation programs to further expand the game of football and create increased opportunities for player development both on and off the field. Health and safety will be a principal area of focus in both learning and innovation, with the XFL working with the NFL on forward-thinking physical and mental fitness programs for players players, the study of playing surfaces and equipment, and the sharing of game trends and data. So it looks like the XFL is going to kind of be a testing ground for the NFL. They're going to try out new rules to improve its game, and they agree with the NFL to let the NFL use whatever they think is working well. A good example, and the NFL has done this in the past, the XFL is credited with the usage of the Sky camera, and before 2000 you didn't see the Sky camera from the NFL. After the XFL closed, you saw the NFL starting to use that camera angle a little bit more. The XFL is credited with stuff like that. So that is what they are agreeing to partner on. Now, it's really important to note that unfortunately, they aren't getting what the AAF was craving. You see, Danny Garcia says that we are extremely pleased to collaborate with the NFL in these important areas. According to Danny Garcia, co-owner and chairwoman of the XFL, we are bringing forward an XFL that is progressive and forward-thinking when it comes to innovation, leveraging the newest technology to enhance game day experience. We have an open field for innovative rules to enhance in-game access. Sharing insights and practices between the XFL and NFL will do a tremendous amount of good for the game of football and support the player ecosystem overall. It seems like the primary focus here is how can we make football less dangerous? People love football. People don't love what's happening to the football players after they finish playing football. So it seems like they're going to be sharing data with one another and testing out different things to ensure that the game is safer overall. But there's also additional avenues for collaboration, which includes international football development and scouting, as well as officiating, including the testing of different game rules for player protection and enhanced overall play, and of different technologies to enhance officiating. The XFL has shown us that innovation is one of its core principles, and we are hopeful that this relationship will support further development and improvements in the game of football at all levels, according to Troy Vincent, the NFL Executive Vice President of Football Operations. So this is very legitimate. You have Kevin Seifert coming out here saying that the XFL and the NFL have reached a collaboration agreement to innovate together on game rules, officiating, and health and safety, among other areas. But XFL chairwoman Danny Garcia made clear that this deal is not a precursor to becoming a NFL developmental league. Full story soon. As the USFL preps its launch in April, this NFL XFL deal is a reminder that the XFL is planning a February 2023 return to the field under a new ownership after 2 years away. So I did a little bit of digging and found this great article from ESPN from Kevin Seifert. The XFL is to be a petri dish for football innovation and prospect development as part of partnership agreement with the NFL. In here, XFL President Russ Brandon told us this: people would ask, what are the opportunities to look at the game through a different lens from a player development standpoint? How can you be an incubator or an accelerant in many different verticals, from officiating to rules innovations to playing surfaces to player development? You can go on and on. Any opportunity that the NFL has to advance the game of football, I think they've always been open to, and we've had some really good dialogue led by our ownership group. Garcia told ESPN that the partnership with the NFL isn't intended to put the XFL in position as a developmental league. In both of its previous incarnations under former owner Vince McMahon in 2000 and 2020, the XFL could not use players under contract with NFL teams. The XFL suspended operations and declared bankruptcy in April 2020, leading McMahon to sell. When he was asked whether the XFL could someday evolve into a position to use allocated NFL players or construct another kind of sharing agreement as occurred in NFL Europe, Garcia said, "That's a no. We are a spring league. We will play at the highest level in the spring. There is not the anticipation of any player sharing that changes the dynamic. That's not how we're executing our vision." One of the things that we made clear starting off is that we're going to take a stewardship position on the game and the game of football, expanding it and being impactful to the industry. So I would say the field sees us as what we are, which is deeply leaning into innovation, and we were confident that having important conversations and articulating what we wanted to accomplish would be advantageous to anyone sitting in the room with us. We're excited about that. Our relationships with football and the NFL are deep and long-standing, so it was a natural process. This is all very promising, and I think what they mean when they say that the XFL isn't a developmental league for the NFL is they aren't really planning on moving to the fall and having players jump from one league to another. But what I do think could happen is if a XFL player absolutely balls out, naturally, if this XFL player gets a much better contract in the NFL, I don't think the XFL is going to hold that player back. That remains to be seen. We're going to see what's going to go down with the USFL in the spring, so make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to get the latest news on this. This is very good news if you're a football fan, because it means that the NFL and the XFL are at least talking and are partnering together to develop the game of football. It means that they're on the same page with one another, and that is the best case scenario in this situation. Let me know what you guys think about this, man. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.